The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
When Jesus heard of the death of John the Baptist, he withdrew and abode to a deserted place by himself. The crowds heard of this and followed him on foot from their towns. When he disembarked and saw the vast crowd, his heart was moved with pity for them, and he cured their sick. When it was evening, the disciples approached him and said, "This is a deserted place, and it is already late. Dismiss the crowds so that they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves." He said to them, "There is no need for them to go away. Give some food yourselves." But they said to him, 5 loaves and 2 fish are all we have." Then he said, "Bring them here to me." And he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he said a blessing, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, who in turn gave them to the crowds. They all ate and were satisfied, and they picked up the fragments left over, 12 wicker baskets full. Those who ate were about 5,000 men, not counting women and children. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Dear brothers and sisters, good morning.
Good morning, Father.
The response of the Lord to various needs of people is quite interesting. And the account of the Gospel from Matthew chapter 14, verses 13 to 21, our Gospel today, mirrors this kind of response from the Lord. And we ask, where is that coming from? Matthew himself writes, he says, his heart was moved with pity for them. He cured their sick. So the reaction stems from his heart. It came from a heart that was caring, compassionate, and really filled with empathy. Punong-puno ng awa, punong-puno ng habag. Because we may be in the same situation as the Lord, but would we be feeling the same reaction or feeling that He had? Meron kaya tayo noon? And it was a place where people gathered simply to be with the Lord. The number as described to us, vast number. Ang dami. They came in by the 1,000. And the disciples were not in a position to respond to that moment, because they said, "This is a deserted place, and it is already late. Dismiss the crowds so that they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves." So we can see here the difference. The disciples were not in a position to do as Jesus was ready to do, to respond to the needs of the people there, to give them something to eat. So they told the Lord, "Dismiss the crowds, let them go. Let them fend for themselves." Bahala na sila sa sarili nila. Because their number is so vast. Sometimes when we listen to this experience, a response rather, of the disciples, we feel the same. Especially during the pandemic, nasubok talaga ito. When people no longer were unable to go out to buy provisions for themselves, supply of food and other necessities were running short. It's a good thing. There are people who, the government had come up with this rationing of food, ayuda. Even in the church, we did it. and even individuals tried to respond to the hungers of people during that time. And so out of this gospel, we ask ourselves, Lord, do I have that compassionate heart that you have, that you possess? Because out of this, he somehow managed to elicit something, and the disciples said, 5 lang ho ang tinapay, the 2 isda. We only have 2 fish, or rather 5 loaves of bread and only 2 fish. What can this do? So other than the usual response, they also failed to see the power of God at work in Jesus. And we all know what happens, brought to the Lord by the disciples, this 5 loaves and 2 fish, he blessed them, offered them to God the Father, and distributed them. And lo and behold, everyone was satisfied. And extra food was available, 12 wicker baskets, and the numbers counted according to St. Matthew, 5,000 were able to eat. These were only men, not counting women, children too. So we turn to this, and I remember one beautiful gesture, act of kindness, act of goodness. And these were American pop singers. And you know who initiated this? Michael Jackson. We are the world. Because Africa, some part, I think it was in Ethiopia, or what part of Africa was in famine at the time. That was in the 80s. I was a newly ordained priest at the time. 85 to be exact. They came up with, we are the world, we are the children, we are the ones, make this. Parang ganon. And I like the opening words, because there comes a time when we hear a certain call that the world must stand together as one. There are people dying. Oh, let's send the helping hand to love, the greatest gift of all. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones. Basta bahala na kayo. But you know that song, hindi lang ho naging popular yun. It was able to feed out of the revenues of the royalties of this song. Even today, ang daming versions na nito. Even for the victims of Yolanda, nagkaroon din sila ng version yan. Even for the people of Haiti, who suffered also hunger. So we turn to the Lord and tell the Lord, Lord, you responded by multiplying the 5 loaves and 2 fish. In the Old Testament, God the Father provided for His people. They were there in the desert. They had nothing. Manna came from heaven. That manna today for us means the bread from heaven, the Eucharist. Not just a physical, not just material nourishment, but also, more importantly, spiritual nourishment. Jesus, the divine healer,
Have mercy on us.